Hello, thank you for watching our video. This video is on defensive maneuvers. We're going to look at specifically footwork. The best thing you can do to start your defense is move the target. You are the target. You can't control whether or not the other person wants to hit you. If they want to try to hit you, they're going to. What you can do, though, is outmaneuver them. This will lead to openings for you to come in with your counters. But you got to make sure you don't get hit first. So we're going to start with three very simple foot maneuvers here, or body maneuvers, to make sure that you have some success in that area. We're going to look at changing your height, width, and depth. And for those of you that are advanced students of martial arts, you understand these are the three elements that we need to look at in any technique. We're going to start with what I think is the easiest one for you to work on and also coach your kids on, which is changing the height. So we're going to do these from a neutral stance. In real life, you may not have an opportunity to get into a proper neutral stance, but for those of you working with your kids at home in particular, make them do the stances correctly. All right, and I put this graphic design down here so you can see it. So in the neutral stance, your front foot is on one side of the line and your back foot is on the other side of the line. I'm going to move up just a little bit to make that more clear. All right, this is your center line, this imaginary line that divides your body in half, and right here I have it on the mat for you. All right, this is a proper neutral stance. If both feet were on the line, this is not a proper neutral stance. All right, if you're more of a horse stance or squared up this way, that's obviously not a proper neutral stance. So the neutral stance is back from in here. Now, from this position, we're going to use a slip. This is boxing 101. You're going to learn this probably in the first day that you come into a boxing class. And the whole idea is to avoid getting hit. But unlike in a boxing competition, on the street, they're allowed to do whatever they want. Boxing has rules. They're not allowed to hit to the groin. They're not allowed to knee you or kick you in the face. The guy in the street can do whatever he wants. So a boxer might bend from the waist more and come up and around like this. And that might be a very good evasive move, but it also may put you in harm's way a little bit more. So we're going to modify that a little bit from in here, and we're going to bend our knees more. Now, you can bend at the waist a little bit, and you can tuck your chin down a little bit, but you don't want to take your eyes off the opponent. All right, so from here with the attack coming in, you're going to bend the knees, and you're going to slip down. Now, this is a little easier to do quickly if you make more of a U shape doing this. All right, come down, come up, back and forth this way. If you go straight up and down, you can do that. But it's a little easier to get the torque that you need for your counters by using a little U shape. All right. Also, when you're working on this, work on keeping your hands up. There's no sense in working on just the footwork and just the leg work and letting the hands go. So again, for those of you coaching your kids at home, the easiest thing to do is just have them put their fingertips right here where their temples are. That's just a good reference point. Doesn't have to be exact, but you don't necessarily want it out like this, all right? And of course, you don't want them in here like this, covering their face. Another thing that you see kids do a lot that you need to correct them on as you help them is they'll put their hands up, but they'll leave their elbows flared out. Now, we're getting a little bit off topic into where the hands should be there, but I want to cover this so that you're helping them with their hands as well as their feet. So keep the elbows tucked in, keep the fingertips right about temple level from right in here. And if they tuck the chin from there, that's just about perfect. Okay? And then they're going to slip down and come back. Notice I don't know if you can see it, so I'm going to do it sideways from here. Notice the back heel is coming off the ground when I do that. Now, a lot of the kids are more flexible than adults, so they may not need to do that. But if they're having a little bit of trouble doing this, then let that back heel come off the ground a little bit, and that's no problem. All right, so the slipping and slipping, all right? And that's going to be a lot for a roundhouse punch. So if somebody's coming in, circling here like this, or slapping, all right, or something like that, and they're going to slip and then come back up on this side, and of course that's where your counters would start coming in from there. But have them work going back and forth on that. Okay, that is changing the height. Now, the next one that we're going to work on is changing the depth. We're going to use shuffles for this. Now, shuffles can be done many different ways. We're really only going to talk about one right now for the purpose of this video, and that's a rear shuffle. And we're going to use the step drag. All right, so from this position, I'm going to move my back foot back 6 or 8 inches, and then I'm going to drag my front foot 1, 2, coming back this way. Now when we say drag, that's a term that we use, but we have to be careful. It's really more of a skimming. You're shifting a little bit more of your weight to your back foot so you can take more weight off your front foot and let it slide across the surface. All right, if you drag it like an anchor, it's going to really slow you down. So that's not really what we're looking for when we say step drag. It's really more of a skim, but it's easier to say step drag, coming back this way. All right, notice here that however far back my rear foot moves, my front foot moves equal amount. All right, so I'm going to use this line right here so you can see just a little bit better. All right, so from this position, I'm going to move my back foot back about 6 inches, which means my front foot moves about 6 inches. I can do the same thing going forward, all right, if I want to do a forward shuffle. So you need to maintain this stance, even if it's just a few inches. However much you go back with the rear foot, that's how much you go back with the front foot. The most common error on this is for people to take a small step with the rear foot and then a larger step here. And that's probably because they realized in a very split second that they did not move this foot far enough. So they have to make up the distance coming back. The problem is that kills your base. All right, from here, now you end up leaning backwards, and now as they press the attack, you have limited options of what you can do next. So if you're working with your kids on this going backwards, make sure they're maintaining that distance there. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but it's got to be pretty close. All right, so I showed that rear shuffle going backwards from the front, and then we also showed it from the side, so you can kind of see what's going on from there. They're maintaining stance. And that's to change the depth. All right, now we're getting to changing the width here. We're going to use a pivot maneuver. Now, changing the width and using a pivot maneuver also gets them out of line of the attack, but it also leaves you normally in a position where counterattack is easier. So this one is a little bit more involved and maybe a little bit more dangerous for the novice student, but it still should be practiced. And as time goes on, you'll probably prefer this one as you go on. So from here, now I'm going to use the center of this right now so you can see I have the white lines at 90-degree angles and I have the yellow broken lines at 45-degree angle. So from this position, if the attack were coming down the center right towards me, I'm going to slide my right foot around, all right, to here to the 45. And now what's happened is I've gotten off the line of attack from here, but I'm also in a position to counterattack here if I need to. Now, we just call that a rear pivot. In some schools, they call that moving up the circle. And if I continue that, you'd see exactly what that means. So if I did it here, and then I did it again here, and then I did it again here, you would see the concept of moving up the circle. But I have noticed for some people, they have a hard time grasping what moving up the circle means. So that's why we have the graphic design here on the floor to help you understand. Now, can you move more than 45? Absolutely. Of course you could. Okay, you could move all the way around this way if you needed to. A good reason for doing that might be that you actually heard the attack coming from here, not in front of you. All right, so you want to pivot around this way to see what was happening from there. But given that if the attack was coming directly in front of you and you could see the attack happening, you're usually going to go about 45 degrees, and that's going to leave you in a position to counterattack if you need to. So those are our 3 maneuvers that we use that are most basic and most useful. You have the slip, which is changing the height. You have the rear shuffle, which is changing the depth. And then you have the rear pivot, which is changing the width. Now, there's more than that, but those are the simplest, easiest ones for you to work on right now. All right, and you can mix and match those as we go on. Now, that's how to do those. Now, how do we train? This is one of the tools that we use at the dojo to help the kids with their blocks. But you can also use something like this to help them with their footwork. Now, this is a very simple tool. It is basically a plastic rod covered with foam, and it has vinyl over it to protect the foam from coming apart. So very simple. You might say right now, I don't have one of those, and I don't have access to one of those right now. So how do I help my kids right now? something you can do that's very simple, and you still should be able to do this at this time, is get a pool noodle, which is made out of foam, and get some PVC pipe that will fit snugly into the center. And you just cut off about 2 feet or so, maybe 30 inches at the most of pipe. And then you cut in about 18 to 24 inches of foam so that you've got a little handle left over here. And then you slide the foam on top of that. Now, if you can find the big, thick pool noodles, that's best. But the smaller diameter ones will work as long as you don't go too crazy on your kids. Make sure that if you do this, that you sand off or otherwise smooth off the ends here so nobody get cut. And if you're going to build one of those for practicing at home, make sure you leave an inch or two of foam sticking out from the end of the PVC pipe. If the end of the pipe is right at the end of the foam, it will sometimes move down, it will get compressed down and leave that pipe exposed, and could lead to some injuries. So leave an inch or two there of foam at the end so that you can mitigate that as well. And then also make sure that you go ahead and smoothen off the end, this end that's going in case there is some kind of contact. It won't be quite as bad. Now, the foam will sometimes move up and down on the pipe. So you can just use any kind of strong industrial glue to keep that from happening. But you can also just use the actual two-component glue for gluing PVC. And that will actually melt the pool noodle foam onto the pipe. All right, don't overdo it, but just enough there to hold it in place, and it will actually melt together. And when it dries, you basically won't be able to get it to come off. You literally have to tear the foam to get it to come off. And that's going to give you some reach. Now, why is that important? Well, you could do these, and if you have some background in training already, you could do these empty hands with your kids. That's fine. All right. But you may get to the point where you're wanting to press them a little harder, and you're concerned that if they miss one of the movements that they would actually get hit by your foot or your hand. And obviously you don't want to use anything hard, like wood or metal for training. So this is a way to train so that you can eventually go a little faster with them and not worry about them getting hurt. And then also, some of the parents have told me, my kids have only been training for a few months, or some of them have been training for years with me, and these kids are pretty fast, and they got some good moves. So this will give you some reach so you can stay farther away from them while you're practicing with them. So just to cover real quickly how you would do this, for the slip, you would want to use a roundhouse type maneuver, all right? And this is going to simulate a punch coming in like this, or a slap coming in like this. So you're going to take the tool here and you're going to swing it like this. Now make sure you aim at their ears. If you swing over their head, because you're afraid you're going to hit them, they're going to get a false sense of accuracy. They're going to think that they're getting really good at this, and then when they spar, they're going to get hit because they weren't dropping down far enough, or fast enough for that matter. So the whole point of this is to aim at the kid's head, aim at his ear. He should have his hands up. So if you go a little faster, or he moves a little slower, it should hit him on the hand and not on the head. All right, but that is really important, that you aim at the kid's ear when we're doing this, coming forward and backward. And then from that position, all right, he should be working on the slips, coming down far enough and coming back up. Now, when you get really good at it, the idea would be they slip just enough for it to miss and they pop right back up again. If they go down too far, they can't get back up fast enough for a second counterattack. All right, so make sure they're slipping just enough for it to miss. All right, and then if they get good at that, then you can pick up the speed. Okay, and that's how you do that with for the slip. Now, for the rear shuffle, you got a couple different options here on this. One is to come in overhead, all right, and come down like this, like you're going to hit on top of their head. And in that case, they should shuffle backwards, and it should just miss them coming down here right in front of them. All right, that's one idea there. Now, the opposite of that is you can take your tool and you can come up like this. Now, that's actually going to simulate a kick. Now in karate, they should be doing nice, crisp, clean front kicks like this, but an untrained person probably won't. It's probably going to be more like a field goal kick. All right, so in that case, it's going to swing from the ground coming up. So coming up like this, you are actually simulating that field goal style kick. And again, as it rises, it comes up, if they shuffle backwards, it should come up here right in front of them. All right, now again, you can also come in straight. All right, and you can take the end, and again, being careful, you come in and then you aim right here coming in, and that simulates, of course, a punch coming in. All right, now from there again, if they're reading the distancing here and they shuffle backwards, they should be a few inches out of range by the time you stop. All right, so those are 3 different angles that you can use there to help them work on the rear shuffle. Now, the rear pivot is essentially all those 3 again. The difference is it actually puts them at a different angle and allows them to counterattack a lot easier. So your more advanced kids are probably going to prefer this, and they're going to be better at it. So once again, you can come down, you can come up, and you can come in straight. Now, another thing that you can do is come in with a backhanded strike from here too. All right, and that will make them pivot even more. Now, they'll probably have to block doing that, but it will also help them maneuver. So again, just to visualize from there, if you're coming down from there, they're going to pivot off to the side like this, and the attack should come down right in front of them. All right, same way if you're coming uphill, they pivot from here, and then the kick or the tool comes up this way. And obviously, if you come in straight from here and you pivot from here and they do it correctly, it will come right past them as well. Now, if you come with a backhanded strike or a round type strike from in here, that's fine, but they're probably also going to have to block there. And most of them in the advanced class and the intermediate class already know how to do a universal block. And so if they already know that, that's fine. If you're working with a beginner child, they don't know it yet, that's okay, they'll get it. All right, but the idea from there is that all of those can also be done there from the rear pivot. Now, you can also start combining these. And my advice to you would be to do them one at a time. So for example, you could have them work on slipping, all right? And they're getting pretty good at that, all right? So then they slip and then pivot from in here, okay? So they could also slip and then shuffle to the rear, all right? Or they could shuffle to the rear, thought they were safe, nope, I need to slip, all right? Come up from in here. Another really good one is shuffle to the rear and then pivot. Okay, and that can come in on techniques where they come in with maybe for example, in that example I gave, the person comes in with a left-handed kick and they shuffle back, and then they try to come in here and hook like this. They might have to pivot there out of the way again. So you can start combining those, but only do them one at a time. Don't try to do a slip, a rear shuffle, pivot, slip again, another rear pivot. You start adding those up, that's too much for most of the kids. So do it as 1, make sure they got it. Do it as 2, make sure they got it. If you want to go up to 3, if they're getting good at it, then that's fine too. Start combining those, okay? If you run into a situation where you tried to put a combination together and it didn't seem to work, then ask them to come up with a solution. Say, hey, I came in with an overhead strike followed by a backhanded strike. What is the footwork that you could use so that wouldn't get you? And if they don't know, experiment. You got time. Okay? Experiment. Try something. Oh, that didn't work? Try something different. They'll figure it out. Okay, but you've got to guide them in that direction. You got to be patient with them as we go. All right, so I hope this helped. And hope this also gives you some exercise and gives you a chance to work out with your kids. And you can also make a game out of it and make it fun for them. Thank you.